Here we go, guys and girls. You're listening to Love, Guns, and Freedom on K-Talks 1340 AM and also 104.1 FM. Another Sunday, another show. Today, different intro. There is no music. Did you hear it? Just straight, abrupt. Here, I'm here. Guess what? Not because I want to change the format of the show, but I am broadcasting. I'm almost thinking that I was not going to broadcast, but I am in one of my let's say, semi-secret locations here in Arizona, where I'm pretty much happy. Okay, when I want to get out of from everybody and all this bad news, I come here. It is a place kind of off the grid. It is off the grid, and barely I have internet. So I didn't want to do too many fancy things. I said just straight to the point. So I have a lot of information. I'd like to talk about different things, but you know the hour is going to be fast. So we go through straight to the topic. First of all, thank you for the feedback for last Sunday's show about the little Elfie Evans travesty in England. I had a lot of feedback, I must admit it. The point is, you know, if you don't like what I say, don't listen. Simple as that. If you love the Queen, the Crown, the little babies, princess and princes or whatever, you know, go ahead. Move to England, whatever you want to do. You know, start a little altar and worship your Queen or your kings. I do not care. You know, I'm very strong and upfront when it comes down to the rights of the individual, that I really believe that nobody should be above each other, especially when it comes down to blue blood crap. That's why I came to America and I didn't move to England. But more important, you know, we were talking about in that show, it wasn't just about the Queen. Of course, always God damn the Queen. And if you want to go to download my songs on Amazon, I appreciate it. But more important was about the right of the individual to at least own and control their body or the body of a son. The point was beyond what happened in England, as I said during the show, the travesty of socialized medicine. That was about completely kidnapping a child and keeping it hostage, and at the same time killing him. Simple as that. So if you don't like what I have to say, I couldn't care less. If you are, you know, a Queen worshipper, you know, just don't listen to me. Seriously, I don't care. Meanwhile, you know, somebody always has to say I don't do enough. I didn't hear enough about the 2,000 children being raped. I'm sorry, I am not Superman. I come here and educate me. If there is something, I'm sure there is something going on. I know there are many bad things going on. I try to touch whatever I can. I'm just a humble local radio host, okay? So that's what I can do. Now, talking about local, I believe that whatever happens in Arizona or happens in our communities, it's happening everywhere. This is not just an Arizona problem. That's why I like this show. It is not just about, we talk about local issues, but we talk about local issues that pretty much are happening everywhere. When it comes down to property rights, the illusion that you can own a piece of land or maybe a little home after you work so hard. It is not just here, because this is happening everywhere. The only difference that here we had it better for a while, and now we are becoming like the rest of the sewer around the world. So my point is property rights. Why? Because it's connected to education. When you look at your tax bill, you will see that you are forced, and let me repeat that, you are forced, you are extorted to pay for a service, in this case, public re-education, the way I call it, because it's not just about educating, it's about completely taking control of the mind of our children. But beside that, before even we go there, maybe I don't want that service. Why should I be forced to pay for something I don't want or I don't need? People, they were screaming and yelling about Obamacare. I mean, people, some, you know, the conservative people, whatever they call themselves conservative, and I'm with you. That's a travesty. But why you did not, at the same time, scream and yell when, you know, many, many years ago, they started this travesty called property tax because justified by public education. Oh, but it's for the children. Guess what? Obamacare was for the poor, or maybe for the children too. Okay? That's BS. That's called extortion. Go to read it on the dictionary. You know, even an Italian, former Italian guy like myself, I can figure it out, the English word for extortion. When somebody's forcing you to pay for something that you really don't want to pay for. Okay? Simple as that. Like the mafia. At least I have more respect for the mafia. At least the mafia, you know their intention. They are crooks. They come there, they want to steal from you. And they're upfront. They are very honest. Then it's up to you if you want to, comply, or you want to sort it out maybe with shooting each other. They give you the chance. Government doesn't give you the chance. So people say, oh, but after all, we need to pay our property taxes. We live in a civil society. You know what? You know what is civil? It's civil when I decide what I can do with my own money, if I want to buy something or not. Not when the collectivism, 51% of the mob will decide what is good for my money. That's not civil. Now, let's talk about a civil person, somebody I respect a lot. Even sometimes I have a couple of things I don't agree on, some issues when it comes down to immigration, but that's really minor because we have bigger things to focus here. When it comes down to individual liberty, I would have better person but Merissa Hamilton to have on my show. Merissa, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, Merissa, you are the man, the woman in this case, when it comes down to these topics. I really appreciate your help, going around, and I like your stance on individual freedoms and rights. And I know you were running for, governor for the state of Arizona under the Libertarian Party. I had you on my show several times. Please, before we go into this ad for ed, I call it communist for ed education issues, I would give me a short story, first of all. Why are not you running anymore for governor of Arizona?
Sure. So, unfortunately, the Libertarian Party at the national level, their vice chair decided to start promoting that it's permissible for aged adults to have sex with children under 16. And I consider that pedophilia. The biggest part of my entire platform was standing against violence against children when either the state does it or a parent does it. So I clearly had to stand against this issue. When I filed a complaint with the Libertarian Party National Council, they ruled that this vice chair statements were not only permissible, but they were also professional. The chair stood by him, half the board stood by him, and then as we researched it, we found that this is a bigger issue within the party in New Hampshire, in California, in Nevada. There was a past presidential candidate that promoted child porn should be permissible.
Wow.
So the only thing to do that was appropriate at that point was leave the party.
Wow. That saddened me. As you said, as you know, I have no party subscription. I don't belong to any party. Even, of course, I'm very sympathetic to probably 80-90% of the Libertarian Party agendas, or at least, platforms. But this one really breaks my heart a little bit. Now, more specific, I don't want to divert too much. I want to talk about this red for ed, but just because, since you touch it, since also it comes close to me, when I was a child, I don't want to talk about my personal life, but, I have my own ideas too. I was in Italy, and I was 14, and I had my first, let's say, sexual relationship. Okay, for me, it was more than sex. I was kind of in love. I know people say, what, are you kidding me? You are 14. I don't care. I was really, I don't know, was like a goddess to me. Was a German woman, a little older than me, in her 20s. Would you consider that, let's say, I was very happy. I wasn't like, oh my God, what am I doing here? That for me was like a miracle. I couldn't believe it was happening to me. But that, you consider that also child, how you call it, pornography, or no, excuse me, child abuse.
Pedophilia?
Yeah. I was 14. I said, I want to have sex with this woman, please. How can we do that? And she went along for it. Now, you think that would be bad? I know that it's very male.
I do. So there's technically a term called hebephilia that was created in the last few decades to distinguish someone having an aged adult having sex with someone that's post-pubescent, but is still a minor.
I see.
And so when I looked at all the studies of that, of what that affects, I do find that to be something that's dangerous for children. I don't think that 14-year-olds are mature enough to handle a relationship with someone that's in their 20s, and it's very easy for young people at that age to fall in love, not realizing that the other person is really looking for sex. And so I think that that's a very dangerous and a coercive form of a relationship. Now, there are caveats to that, where if a child decided that they are more mature than their average peers, and they want to declare their adulthood, there's legal processes for that. There's also Romeo and Juliet laws that would permit in Arizona if someone's 17 and the other person's 19. That's permissible under the Romeo and Juliet laws.
I understand.
So there are laws in place to handle the exceptions, but But in general, that's going to be a dangerous proposition for a child.
No, I understand. And probably, it is pretty easy to fall in the trap of different standard for males and different standard for females, especially in the Italian culture. If you're a boy and you're 14 and you go with a woman, wow, you're going to have big points at the bar, okay? Even, of course, technically I couldn't go to the bar, but I was already at the bar at 14. Anyway, but regardless, I know it's difficult to go into that. But anyway, that was for me. All I can say, German lady, wherever you are, I'm not going to report you to the police. I will keep you in my prayers wherever you are right now, after 30 years later or more. All right, listen, Merissa, now let's talk about, not because this is not important, let's talk about really things that I think they are happening right now in the state of Arizona, that there is more just than an increase, potential increase of our property tax, dollars tax, and of course, much more revenues to give to this education, public education. This is for me about the danger that this red for ed movement. It is not just about trying to get an extra increase in their salary. It is about controlling Arizona politics and, more important, controlling our children, because the next generation of voters will be coming out of our public schools. And you see what happened now when these young people, they don't use anymore their brain, but they're being conditioned to think they are part of a herd, like a bunch of cows, and they can just walk out of school with some slogans, and they think they can vote out our rights. We don't need guns because the children say so. So anyway, I give you the floor.
Right.
What's going on with, first of all, in your opinion, with this movement called Red for Ed? That I really, when I find this color called red, I always associate it to red as communist, and I really believe they're a bunch of communists, my opinion. So I'll give you the floor. Go ahead. What do you think is going on? They really want just some few extra dollars for the salary, or there is more?
Sure. So I was sympathetic, to the movement of having more teacher pay. And I was researching this last year as I was running for governor. But as I researched it more and more, I found that the issue is actually at the school board level. In the past tax increases that Arizona voters have approved for increased teacher pay, that teacher pay never made it to the teachers. The school board misappropriated for other things. And so I was initially first skeptical of the movement because they were not holding the school boards accountable. I also found that it was morally wrong for them to do a strike. They are not, and I had a discussion yesterday with a union head out of Miami, Arizona about this. I find it morally repugnant for people to do collective bargaining against the taxpayer, because that's theft, that's coercion. It's not, when someone's getting paid by the government, they're getting paid by me, by the work that I'm doing. And so what they're really doing is they're taking money out of my pocket and putting it into their pocket. And whereas teachers have a difficult job, but so do police officers and so do firefighters, and the public relies on them. They put parents in jeopardy. They put parents in a huge emergency situation, a crisis situation, and they knew that they knew they were doing that. They did that on purpose. The plan that the governor ended up signing off on versus what he was promoting in the beginning that they striked over is not remarkably different. So their entire strike was purposeless, except that it was designed to interrupt and hurt the taxpayer, hurt the parent. And we had parents that lost their jobs over this. We had parents that got evicted over this because they couldn't make pay. We have support staff, like substitute teachers, that now lost over a week of pay, and they have no way of making that up. Now, most people, when they lose a week of pay, they can't make their bills for the month. And so this was intended to be disruptive and as a coercive tactic to get their way. And so I went to the school board meeting in Paradise Valley on Thursday to find out, what was their position? How did they think about this? What did they think it was a success? To me, it wasn't a success. They have no accountability. They have no transparency. They have not done anything to improve outcomes for students. None of the goals that I think our school system should have, and that our parents think that the school system should have, did they accomplish with this? And so they had two teachers that spoke up as representatives for the group. And mind you, the school board was keeping everyone under a 3-minute time, except when these two teachers came up to speak, they did not put a timer on them. It was clearly planned, pre-planned, and afterwards, one of the parents in the school system sent me a letter that they had received that had asked for people to show up in support of them because they thought that people that opposed them were going to come and hoard the microphones, which is not what happened. So the entire thing, that letter showed that the entire thing was pre-planned.
Yes.
So the teacher gave her speech. Sorry, go ahead.
No, yes, I agree with you. I completely agree with you. Another thing also I would like to say, I mean, I work in the private sector, and I know many other people work in the private sector. I never heard anybody, I work for myself, but if I had, let's say, a worker, somebody that works for me, and he asked me, hey, I want 20% raise. Are you kidding me? I'm going to laugh. I'm going to fire you. Okay. I mean, that's the first thing I would do. I mean, we can have a laugh. 20% increase overnight, or at least, out of the blue. And, then we can talk still, of course, that probably, maybe compared to the rest of the nation, their salary is not as good as maybe the medium bottom or whatever. But 20%, that's a huge increase. Do you know anybody else in the private sector that would get like that so fast, a 20% increase in their paycheck?
No, in fact, in the private sector, pay isn't increasing at that pace. Many people in the private sector have had pay decreases because the economy is still technically rebounding. And when I looked at what the average household pay in Arizona is, which is $53,000 for a two-person family household working full-time, it's $53,000. And when you look at the average pay of teachers, it's $43,000 on the low end, but it's in the 50s and 60s on the high end. And that's for one person working part-time. Technically, part-time hours.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
Their pay is comparable to what the average pay is, and in some cases higher than the average entire household pay in Arizona. And so, so do I want to make sure teachers are compensated properly? Absolutely. But but doing a strike and as a coercive tactic against parents is not the way to do it, because that means that those parents now have less money in their pocket.
Yeah.
To take care of their children.
Yeah.
And that's wrong.
Exactly.
And so what I had suggested to them when I was talking to the union leader, I said, look, there are methods for you guys to get pay raises. Besides having a conversation with the governor, you could go and do a public initiative, like what everyone else has to do when they want to get a pay raise. Do a public initiative, fund the signatures. It would have been cheaper than what red bread cost the union. Fund the signatures and have the public vote on it. And that's how you can go and get a pay raise legally, lawfully, without coercion.
Yeah.
But they didn't want to hear about it.
And one question. So, I heard that I was reading an article by the Barry Goldwater Foundation that technically it's illegal for these teachers to strike in Arizona. This is a right to work state. Yes. Okay. Is it true?
Yes, that is true. It is illegal for the teachers to do a strike, and that's the reason why they called it a walkout, so that they could try to legally get out of it. But I do know Goldwater is suing over that and pursuing that lawsuit.
Yeah.
But what's worse is the speech that this teacher gave representing the group of teachers. Because Red Fred is claiming that she doesn't represent all teachers. Well, no, actually she does. That's what her role was in speaking at this Paradise Valley meeting. And her entire speech was about how she loves being a teacher, because that means that she has the role of changing the culture of her students.
Yes.
And that her role particularly, that herself as an individual is not important, that what's more important is the collective working together to change the culture of these students. And that she ended the speech saying that no person, no individual is more important than the collective.
And that's what freaks the hell out of me. This is exactly why I completely despise public re-education school. And I tell you like that because I come from Italy. This is bad here. Imagine you in Italy. I grew up in state-owned, I mean, it's all pretty much state. There are, of course, also private schools, but very expensive. Since I was 11, I was the result, but they didn't really work very well on me. I don't know why. Maybe my DNA was stronger than their brainwashing in a state-funded public school. And I can tell you from a real, very young experience. I was 11 when I started to go in the first boarding school owned by the state, and all the way to my military school. And I tell you, what the public school does in Italy, like of course also here, it is not about education. It's about shaping the mind of the new class of slaves, because they want productive slaves. They don't want thinkers. They don't want free thinkers. They want people that must follow the agenda. The agenda now, unfortunately, it is not just here. Of course, it's more important. It came from Europe and from the rest of the world, but now it's coming here. It's about collectivism. That's what they want. They want to you think you're part of a herd. Guess what? I'm very concerned what's happening here, because I see the results right now, even just after the Second Amendment walkout marches, what the last 30, 40, 50 years of public education have done to our next generation. So I really advocate, for me, the drama would end like that overnight with homeschool. But this is just my humble opinion. What do you think about homeschool, Merissa? Maybe it's too much of an extreme situation?
No, absolutely not. Homeschooling is a fantastic way to educate children, and especially today with modern technology, there are homeschool networks where parents have been able to come and team up together so that they can still keep their day jobs, and then they work together to be able to provide schooling for their children as like a neighborhood initiative. And so there's lots and lots of ways and formats to do homeschooling. There's also something called unschooling, which means that you don't use a formal curriculum, and you teach your children as they're ready for development to increase their knowledge. And I've seen all different methods of homeschooling. And typically what I find is that these children are advanced in their learning. They are advanced in their maturity. And they're far advanced in their creativity, which is what makes America great. That ingenuity is what has been the spirit and soul driving the success of this country. So I'm a huge proponent of homeschooling. I'm really a proponent of all of the above. I think that parents should find what is the best option for schooling for their children. And so I'm not necessarily for abolishing the public school system immediately. But man, these teachers are pushing me to the edge of going to that side of things, because what they've been doing to the students in school since this has happened. I've gotten so many reports from teachers that have been bullied, or from parents that the teachers have been bullying their students if they join the Purple for Parents group. Purple for Parents is a group of parents that stood up and said, "No, this is not acceptable. You need to get back to work." And not only that, but we're not going to support you having a teacher pay increase unless you give something back to the parents and back to the kids. And we want more accountability. We want more transparency. We want the parents to be more involved in the education and have more of a say in what their children learn.
Yes.
And when these kids went back to school, there's many teachers that have been bullying the kids that their parents were vocal Purple for Parents supporters. I know one substitute teacher that got fired because she participated in a debate, standing up for the Purple for Parents side.
Wow.
I know another she's not a teacher, she's support staff, but she was basically forced out, and she ended up quitting, but she was harassed for not participating in Red for Ed. And not only that, but they were seeking to have her license revoked by the state because of it.
Wow.
Just really dirty, typical, coercive, thuggery union tactics.
This is so sick. This is so
that
sick.
tells me
Wow.
this wasn't about the kids.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. This thing was not about the kids. It wasn't about even getting more teacher pay.
Yes. No, I tell you, for me,
this was about coercing. This was about coercing the system for the collective.
And one thing about coercing, I understand we've been, let's say, addicted to these public services for so long. Okay, that now if you even talk about it, you look like a bad guy. But let's talk about principles. Okay, I don't believe in coming to you and you need to pay for my stuff. I mean, I don't think it's fair. I may ask you as a friend, say, could you give me this month maybe $10? I'm short. And then you say, okay, I have it, or no, I don't like it, or whatever. It's up to you. If I come to your home and I say, you know what, I need to send my children to school, so you better cough it up and you pay for it. That's wrong. That's wrong, especially when it's done in a way that is somehow is going to create a situation very dangerous, especially for people on fixed income, let's say retired people. I see, for example, the property tax in every county in Arizona, but all over the world, it's not just here. Every year, they always go up. It's a trend. It's not going down. If they go down for a moment, it's just a moment. They go back next year twice. So my point is, people must understand the big chunk of the property tax bill is because what is called public education. Now, with this trend, pretty soon, if we don't put a stop, first of all, it's wrong for me, $1. I wouldn't give, if I was able to keep my property without going to a shootout with a sheriff because they come to get my property, I would do it. I don't want to give $1 out of this, my tax dollar, but it's just me. And I may give you triple of more time as a donation because it's my will, my free will. But when it comes down to property taxes, I think it's one of the most violent, coercive, and disgusting and coward act towards the individual. People say, wow, you're so dramatic. Yes, I am. Let's analyze for a moment. We have the illusion that we own a property. But the illusion is very simple, ends at the end of the year when they send you the tax bill. People say, okay, and I tell you, okay, people say it is just by vote. Guess what? It's also by violence. They not only take over your property by vote, because, they decide how much tax dollar you need to pay. But then, if you don't pay, they will come with violence and take your stuff and take you home. So this is, for me, already communism 101, period. And that's my point. Must be other ways
absolutely,
to finance public school for people who have the option or the desire to send their kids to public school. And I'm sure there must be ways like the gasoline tax. You go to on the street, on the road, you drive, you pay a gasoline tax. And of course, they charge us also for the freaking registration, but that's another story. So my point must be find other ways to pay for this public school. If I don't want to go there, bottom line, I shouldn't be forced to pay. I should be say, okay, you keep your tax dollar and you do your private homeschooling stuff or whatever, private school. What do you think about solution? I'm going to try to find solution. What could be a solution to avoid for people to be forced to pay with their property taxes for the public school when they don't use it? What solution we can find? Go ahead.
Sure. So actually, I had a solution in my gubernatorial plan. And my solution was that we needed to split up the services that government pays for between essential and non-essential. And education would stay in the essential category for now, but the non-essential side, what could happen is that each taxpayer could elect where those tax dollars go. And so if they wanted to defund one non-essential service and give it to the schools and give it to teacher pay and specifically even down to the zip code that they wanted it to go to, that was the plan that I was going to put in place, is that it would go into a fund that the school boards couldn't touch and it had to go directly to teacher pay. The other option that I wanted to put in place is that on average we spend between 7,000 and 9,000, some districts are 11,000 for public schooling per child. And so if a child took their child out of the public school system, I wanted 80% of that money to go with the child, so the parents would get it back as a tax rebate to them. Okay. And then 20% would be left. 20% of funding for that student would be left in the school system to educate less kids. So you'd be simultaneously increasing the funding per child while encouraging parents to be able to educate their children in whatever method they deem necessary and beneficial. And so this way, between these two programs, we would be able to get the coercion out of funding public schooling and instead be able to and give parents a choice to be able to fund their kids' education. Yes.
It's a good idea. I mean, it's a great start. Don't get me wrong. I mean, and at least you try to remove the pretty much the government. What does is simple. The 51% of the people, they say, hey, we got to pay for this, and they come and get it from you, period. We try to find other ways, and that's, I think, what's supposed to be the libertarian way. We don't need to coerce people to buy a product that you don't want. Why? That's not more freedom. That's slavery. I mean, what the heck? Like the Obamacare, and that's the sad thing,
Right.
I went to a few years ago to talk to...
Exactly. And the thing is that if we had a...
I lost you. Are you there? Merissa, I lost you.
No, I'm still here. I'm
Okay.
still here, Hannah.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
What's
Can you hear me?
Yes, I hear you. Continue what you were saying,
Okay.
please.
So the thing is that when you have a coercive system, that's where you can have school teachers stand up and proudly say, "I'm here to brainwash your kids."
Yeah.
And whereas if we had a system that was a voluntary system, that would require teachers to have to actually meet the needs and goals and perspective of the parents. And that's not what's happening today. And so it's created a system where it's us against them, rather than it being a win-win situation that the teachers and the parents can have a good relationship together and I'm not saying that this is all teachers, but this is the nature of a system of force.
Yes.
And instead what happens is you start having these elements come in. There was another teacher that boldly basically was cursing out the parents on Facebook, saying that just saying very derogatory things towards the parents. He eventually deleted the post.
Yeah.
But that's not. It's the nature of having a coercive system that allows this negative culture to be fostered. And instead, what we should do is we should have a system that creates win-win, that is not coercive, and that gives parents choice. Because at the end of the day, education plays a huge role in what those children become. And education should be helping those children become their greatest good, not a collective brainwashed entity, but their greatest good for that particular individual.
Yeah.
That's what our society should be working towards.
Yes. No, I understand. And at the same time, people. I had an interaction of this Red for Ed board on Facebook. They kicked me out in 5 minutes, and I was very polite. I was trying to be kind. No, seriously, I don't want to go there aggressive. Even I'm frustrated. I said, the first thing I said on the board: solutions, homeschool, and we end the drama. And of course, they thought I was kidding. Instead, I was serious. Then they started to get kind of, very much defensive, and the answer was, I was trying to bring my topic very simple. The point is, if I live in a free society, I should decide if I want to pay for a service, if I want a service. If I don't want it, I shouldn't pay for it. Simple as that. And their answer is, for the good of the collectivists, the 51% decides that this good. So that's not freedom. That's democracy. That is one step close to socialism. That is socialism at the end. Because I think it was Arendt, the difference between communism and socialism, communists will use force and socialism will use the votes. But at the end, socialists will use force too. As I said before, if I don't pay my property tax bill, they will come with guns to take my house. So that's very sad, because at the end you expose them that for the greater good, they are allowed in their mind to use force and to coerce me. And I think that's disgusting. But more important, the sad thing, they were trying to say, oh, that's, you will interact with these people. That's why you have to pay, even if you don't use the school. I told them, when I interact with the future, professionals or people in the society, they don't do it for free. They're going to charge me. So I'm paying enough there, okay? If I'm paying right now also for education of somebody else, I should get it for free then, their service, right? Instead, it's not like that. So unfortunately, if you want to use logic, and that's all I'm trying to do, it's easy to expose the fact that what they are trying to do here is to coerce with violence free individuals. That's a fact. And we've been, drunk and addicted to this free stuff for so many years now. And even if I go there in, let's say, so conservative clubs, when it comes down to education, you need to bow down, take your pants down, and cut the check. And that's, for me, only way I would cut a check is out of my free will. Of course, I'm forced to pay property taxes, unfortunately. But anyway, that's another story. You know what, Merissa, why don't you run for something with the education boards or something that could be good? Because you seem very caring about these issues.
Well, actually, what I'll be doing is I have created a group with Purple for Parents called Occupy the School Boards. And we are mobilizing a group of parents around the state to run for school board. And so I will be working with a team of other people that have experience serving on school boards. And we will be training, equipping, teaching these parents how to run for office, how to campaign, and how to manage a school board effectively, so that we can accomplish goals of the actual parents, which is accountability, transparency, fiscal responsibility, and better outcomes for students.
Yes.
So I'm very excited to lead this initiative. I think that this is going to be one of the best solutions that we can bring to our public school system,
Yes.
which is putting it back in the control of the parents.
I agree. And this is very important because it is not just the tax dollar that is very important, but also is about the future of the minds of our children. It freaks the hell out of me when these teachers, I think it was Lenin, said, give me your children for 5 years and they will become part of, owned by the state. They will become our agents. Pretty much that's what they're doing. I mean, when you go to Cuba, or any type of, let's say, dictatorial government, like in China or Russia, when there was especially the Cold War, the goal is to take the children out of the family as soon as possible. Okay? And I tell you, in my own experience, I didn't go because I was forced. I went to public schools, and more important to, let's say, school, boarding schools because of my choice for family choices. But regardless, I noticed how the state tried to shape your brain. And that's very important. When you're young, you are innocent and you don't have enough mechanisms to defend yourself unless you are a freak like myself that somehow scream, no, I'm not going to be part of this freaking crap. But the average kid out there will be shaped in the new generation of slaves. That's my fear. And that looks what's happening right now with the gun issue. Talking about gun, you're a great Second Amendment defender, but I also read that a few years ago or before, you weren't really into the Second Amendment. Am I right?
Yes, that's true. I was anti-gun. I was raised to be anti-gun. I was raised to be anti-gun, anti-military, anti-self-defense, really in general.
Wow.
And it wasn't until I had to face violence myself in a domestic violence situation, and also being a victim of sexual assault, that I learned that I had to defend myself. And I tried to figure out how to defend myself without a gun.
Yeah.
But there was no competition. The only way that I was going to be able to defend myself against a man that's 6'4", over 200 pounds, very capable and strong, was having a gun. And so I went, and that became my journey of being pro-Second Amendment.
Wow, that's interesting.
That person didn't go away from getting a restraining order.
Yeah.
I had to deal with that person as a threat for many, many years. And my fear would be is that if our Second Amendment went away, I now become a victim again. Because that person didn't stop being violent. In fact, I've had to help 2 other women since then get restraining orders against him because he became violent against them too.
Yes.
So our Second Amendment is not just there to stand guard against tyranny. It protects me personally.
Yes.
And that's why it's so important to me to have a strong Second Amendment, be well-trained and well-armed.
Yes. And it's true. It's for both situations, personal defense and also the defense of our freedoms in general. But for sure, firearm is a great equalizer. You can have an older person over a woman that normally they consider some women, not all women, of course. Some women I know they're stronger than many men I know. But regardless, it's normally by nature the woman is weaker than a man. So it's a very important tool. But of course, more important, your mindset. You don't want to be a victim. So that's why the gun at the end is an extension of your will to defend yourself. But it's better a Glock than a rock. Of course, a rock too could do it sometimes. But you know what happened with Alfie Evans in England just last week. I mean, for me, that's why really people should have guns. More important. I mean, as important, I want to say, because when governments start to kidnap your children and say now he's going to die because we cannot show to the world our failures, or maybe just because we have a point to make that we are the boss and we are the gods, I think that's why people need to wake up and say, we better be armed. What do you think? Am I too extreme? Should I go to probably to re-education camps for this type of thoughts? Or maybe I'm something? Are you there?
Well, I was told this last week that I'm going to get sent to the re-education. So I guess you and me will be there together, Zanna.
Yeah,
can you hear me?
Yes, I hear you. Go ahead.
Are you there?
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I hear you. I hear you.
Okay. So, yeah. All right, perfect. So, so the thing is that the story of Alfie Evans happens every single day in America. And I did a live stream on this because just last week I met with the parents of Devaney, who is a young girl that's 2 years old. Arizona took her from her parents, who were not abusing her, and put her into a pedo ring. They then, the FBI rescued this little girl from a pedo ring, and then at the age of, I think it was 4 or 5, put her in the home of a woman that boiled her alive, burned 80% of her body, and they had to amputate all 10 of her toes. They're still refusing to give her to her parents.
Oh my God.
We also have a situation that happened on the East Coast of baby Stephen, who was doing well with the parents, had health needs, but the state took the child. The child's health digressed significantly. The parents were able to find another hospital that could treat that child. The state would not let them go, would not let baby Stephen go to the hospital, and ordered baby Stephen to die. Same exact thing that happened to Alfie Evans.
Wow.
This is not something that's isolated to England. This is happening in America every single day through our Child Protective Services system. In Arizona, it's called GCS.
Yeah.
But these people are dangerous, and they took. And I remember last year I was on the show, in 2016 I was on the show with you.
Yeah.
When they took the Shores children, Arizona went to Nevada, took the Shores children by gunpoint, and it sounded like a terrorist attack.
Yeah.
Those kids were screaming and crying, and literally being pulled away from their parents by gunpoint. It's just not acceptable. Our country has disintegrated into tyranny today.
Yes, I agree. The thing, we saw in England was probably more evident, more on the open, because, for me it was amazing the fact that another country, in this case Italy, was offering citizenship and the opportunity to travel to Italy and to give it a chance to cure and heal this boy. And the government said, no, he's going to stay here. We say so. That's, really, but unfortunately what you say is true. It's happening everywhere. Sometimes we don't know because they don't get so evident in the mainstream news, but it's happening. And the idea of the Child Protective Service is another thing that I'm glad that you've been talking about it and try to educate people about it, because, as I said, also there, it's a next generation of humanity, of our people. If you have a child, it's going to be mentally abused and physically abused. What do you think you're going to have in society? You're going to have not just a poor soul that's going to be ruined for the rest of their life, but you're going to have a society that, unfortunately, and not even forget the parents, poor bastards. I mean, you go crazy. Anyway, Merissa, thank you very much for bringing this fact and information, and I give you the floor, the last 60 seconds, whatever you want to say. Go ahead.
Sure. The important thing to recognize, though, is that this issue with Red for Ed and the public school system and control of your children is related to Alfie Evans, because most kids are taken from the public school system. That's how CPS gets their hands on those kids. And they do it through an investigation with those children that's very coercive, where they ask leading questions and basically con the children into saying things that, putting words into their mouth that they're not really saying their parents are abusive. But it works in the favor of the state. And so that's the reason why I'm so passionate about being against Red for Ed and in favor of Purple for Parents and the CPS situation, because the state doesn't own your kids. Parents and the family unit, that's where children belong, not with the state, not with teachers, but with their parents. And so it's a very, very dangerous road that we're going down.
You're right. And I appreciate your input, Merissa. Thank you very much, Merissa. And let's be in touch. Keep me posted, okay?
Sure. One last thing. If people want to be able to follow this, they can go to my page on Facebook, at Merissa Hamilton for Life and Liberty. And also, I am now on the board of directors for the Republican Liberty Caucus. If you want to help change the direction that our nation is going and have more liberty for the individual, get involved.
Very good. Very good. Thank you, Merissa. Be in touch, okay? Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Zanna.
All right.
Have a great day.
All right. That was Merissa Hamilton. Now, a little bit of a break that technically, This show today is really different. I don't have any bump music and no commercials, just me talking in the middle of nowhere, Arizona. Now, let me have a little bit of a play, this little segment, and it's a little video that Merissa Hamilton took when she went to witness these Red for Ed meetings, where she claims, one of these leaders, that it's not about just the money, it's about controlling the individual, controlling your children. The group is more important than the individual. That's a typical socialist mentality that I despise. Without apologies, be clear. I'm not saying that every teacher is a scumbag. Don't get me wrong. There are a lot of good teachers out there. I believe they are the fiber, and they really mean well, and they want to try to also teach the individuals the principles of freedom. I know there are a lot of good teachers. I met some. But unfortunately now the union, they're taking over, and they try to completely, you see what happens. If you don't agree with them, they harass you, they kick you out. So that's why I say it's very important to distinguish the good ones from the bad ones. Meanwhile, Red for Ed, in my opinion, is a travesty for freedom. You're listening to Love, Guns, and Freedom with luca-zanna. Do not go away.
You have to be a social studies teacher. I teach mostly government and economics. Our nation is a three-legged stool. The way that we keep everything together is that we have a shared system of responsibilities, that we check each other's power, and that we've got three branches of government that help keep the most important part of our culture, the people, up, even, and stable. The thing that I love about being a public school teacher is that I feel like our schools are the same thing as our country. We've got these three institutions. We've got school employees, we've got school leadership, and we've got the community and the family. All three of us work together, and we keep the most important part of a school flat, stable, and elevated, and that's the kids. When I'm popping off about the work that I do for Speech and Debate, and my Gay Straight Alliance Club, and all the other things that I do, I'm always reminded by the people that I work with that I'm there for my kids, but the only reason that what I do matters is because I'm working on the entire culture. I'm so grateful every time one of us decides to silo ourselves, claim that we're more important than the mission and the culture.
She's talking about being a teacher so she can change our culture.
We're better when we're together, and we're better when we remember who we're here for. So when Doug Ducey tries to hand a bunch of money to teachers to make them shut up, and we remind them that we're not here for the money, it's an excellent reminder to us that none of us are more important than anything else, and that the kids fail if we aren't all doing the same thing together. Red Fred was amazing. You didn't have to have children to see how important this movement was to the future. But I feel empowered. And I'm grateful that the legislature has at least noticed how many of us. There are a lot of us. I'm proud to be a teacher, but I'm even prouder to be part of a district that recognizes that all of us working together are a lot more important than any one person, any one thing, any one culture. Thank you.
Here we go. That's exactly the point. There's a couple of things I agree. Yeah, we have three different branches of government, but at the end of the day, what is scary here, we are more important than the individual. That's the scary thing. And, any one person, any one thing, any one culture, the individual is supposed to be always protected. That's the bottom line. Instead, this thinking, this collectivist thinking is exactly what they will take to use to destroy our rights. Look at right now what's happening with the Second Amendment. They think now, because of 51%, 69, 75, doesn't matter. The majority of people, because they are so being brainwashed to understand that they don't understand that we live in a republic. They think that we live in a democracy. Democracy means 51% of the mob can decide if you can have a right. They can decide if you can keep your home or how much you should keep of your earning, of your work. So that's the story. And that's what they're trying to do. And they're doing it. So, and these people, they will be used by the elite for the agenda of global government. Mark my words, that's what they're doing. So right now, it is not just about, of course, red for red. It is also about communism. Simple as that. 1st of May, happy birthday, Karl Marx. 10 goals that the Communist Manifesto pretty much have been accomplished in America. I'll just give you a couple. I don't need to give all. Think about it. Okay? Heavy progressive graduated income tax. Heavy progressive graduated income tax. Something that before 1913 we did not have in this country. Think about it. And more important, the truth. This money don't even go to the people for services. They just pay the interest to a private bank called Federal Reserve. That's been proven by the congressional investigation under President Reagan. And then think about the idea of who owns really the land, who owns property. It's not you. It's not me. Abolition of all public land and application of all rents of land to public purposes. That was one of the first things in the Karl Marx Manifesto. The idea that private property must be completely controlled and eventually abolished. Because I tell you something, that's why I'm so vocal about these property taxes used for education and any other service that we may not want. Think about it. You are on fixed income. Okay? And they decide that they want more because they need more. After all, the public school superintendent, he makes $150,000. How much he makes for a year is ridiculous. They need a new car. They need new that, new this. I mean, you got to pay. You are forced to pay. Meanwhile, you're on fixed income. Meanwhile, you lead a home that you work so hard all your life to buy and to keep and maintain, because every year you got to pay your property taxes. Out of the blue, you realize now that you don't work anymore, and you go on your little Social Security or whatever you're supposed to get for your retirement. Guess what? You're not going to be able anymore to pay the mafia bill. I call it mafia bill without apology, because as I said, that's exactly what the mafia does. They come to you at the end of the year or the end of the week or whatever, and they say, you give us that money or we'll shut you down. After all, it's for a good cause too. I'm sure they need money too for their children, okay? Even the mafia needs money for their children, for God's sake, I'm sure. What is the difference? You give it to somebody else or you give it to the mafia? It's the same. People say, wow, you're really out of your mind. No, you know what? I'm really honest. Think about it. You're paying for a service that you don't want to use or you don't need. That's not freedom. That's not love. That's called coercion. As I said, the only difference between government and mafia, with the mafia, you may have a chance to have a standoff. And maybe if you're good enough and you got enough balls, you may fight and maybe you can even win. With the government, you never win. That's a fact. And I know I'm not for violence. I'm a very peaceful man. At the same time, I must be honest. I'm not even to be bossed around as a slave. But right now we have property taxes because after all, red for red, in Arizona, they want 20% more increase, and that's not even enough. They're not even happy, because you heard what they want. It's not about the money. It is about controlling your children. It's about implementing their agenda. That is not only about Democrats or Republicans. It's about completely collectivist. This is about global socialism. That is pretty much the same as communism. Ayn Rand, as I said before, defines, socialism, they will use votes to take what is your rights and your property. Communists, they will take guns. It's the same. Socialism, they will take the votes, they make it look a little more civil, but at the end, even under socialism's government, if you don't comply, you will get shot. Simple as that. So it's bad, and it's coward. If these people really wants to come and steal from you, they better grow some balls. I have more respect for thieves out there. At least, they come to you, say, give me the money, and maybe you can fight back. These people, they want taxes. Meanwhile, they always hide behind the ballot vote box. Okay? All right, let me shut up. Talking about things. I'm for free market. I'm for free market. I believe in freedom. People should have the right to buy something or not. If you give a good product, a good service, you have a chance to be in business. That's what I do for a living. Okay? You can buy any of my songs. If you support my message, I appreciate it. Nobody's forcing you, though. That's the beautiful thing about free market. You can go on Amazon.com and download any of my songs, or go to www.zanna.us. Download my book. Now, talking about my book, Perfectly Crazy. I'm very proud of my book. 69 erotic poems and love visions. I have an idiot on my YouTube that he was shocked, seriously, shocked that I am such, I don't know, a low-life Eurotrash, like the way he called me. Now I think, according to him, I was all good when I was talking about, America, Constitution, patriot stuff. And now, because of my moral views on sexuality or sensuality and my erotic poems, I am trash. And I'm supposed to go back to Italy. You know what is really? There's no difference between you and the moral police in Iran or in Muslim countries. Nobody asked you to read my book. Nobody even asked you to be on my Facebook or be on my YouTube. I have nothing to apologize. I am proud to be a free human being, that I don't need to look at politically correctness, what people think about me. I am who I am. I am a man. I was a young man years ago, and I did what I had to do, what I wanted to do. Maybe I've done not everything 100% perfect, but guess what? Nobody can judge me but God's. Okay? So that's the bottom line. You're not God. You're not my gods, so leave me alone. Simple as that. All right, at this point, I love you very much. And if any teacher from Red for Ed feels insulted, don't be mad. No, just come on my show. Let's talk about it. I want you on my show. If anybody feels like they would like to say something. Now, one thing, I have a lady from Facebook that she wanted to talk about Facebook censorship. We will talk about it, but as I said, I give you 50 minutes. I already had you on my show 2-3 times. That's plenty. And honestly, as I said, we already know Facebook censorship is terrible. My opinion is, if you don't like it, don't be on the show. So anyway, I'll try to talk about this censorship next week, okay? That's it. I'm just a human being. I just have a 1-hour show now, and I'm a very busy guy. I can't do it all, okay? Thank you very much. Love, Guns, and Freedom, and that was it. You've been listening to Love, Guns, and Freedom with Luca-Zanna. Go to lovegunsfreedom.com. Ciao.